And we're back for our very first broadcast of 2024. So excited to spend some time with you all. We're going to be talking about yearly planning today. And this is something that I've had on my mind quite a bit here. Planning is kind of our theme of the year. And I wanted to talk about the art of planning and why sometimes, coming up with a yearly plan can feel a bit overwhelming. And so we're going to be talking about the obstacles that might occur when you're trying to sit down and plan out the year, whether you are focusing solely on your business or if you are doing a comprehensive yearly plan that takes into account all of the aspects of your life, which is what I'm going to encourage you to do today. So today, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be really digging into this concept of self-reflection and introspection and how those things tie in to being able to create effective yearly plans. But before we do that, we're going to play a little music, make sure that we're live in all the places and spaces. So while I'm doing that, let me know where you're tuning in from and let me know, have you done your yearly planning yet? We almost made it back in time, but not quite. All right, here we are. And the topic of the day is overcoming obstacles to yearly planning. This is going to be a good one. And I think that we're live in all of the places. We will check to make sure that Instagram is working properly. Hey there, Aaron. So nice to see you. Aaron's tuning in from Brooklyn and he wants to do all the things. I love it. Laura says, hey, Sarah, and looking forward to this Friday. Yeah, Laura, I'm so excited that you've joined the planning workshop. It's going to be a really good time. I don't know what's going on with Instagram. We keep having issues with the the stream over there, so we'll see if we can get it going. But if not, hey, just join us over on YouTube or Facebook. Those places are just fine and dandy. We'll double check our stream key real quick, and that's all we're gonna try with that. I think we're okay. Oh, that looks kind of nice. We'll make sure that this is going live. It looks like we should be good to go. All right. Well, let's hope that Instagram is actually going live. All right, so welcome back to Savvy Music Studios Wednesday broadcast. I'm excited to be here, and let's dive right in. So we are going to be talking about yearly planning and some of the obstacles that we might bump into when we're trying to plan for an entire year, because that can feel like a lot, because there's a lot of days in the year. And when you're trying to plan for all of those days, it can feel a little overwhelming. So one of the reasons that this is challenging for a lot of people is that planning really requires us to have a lot of self-awareness, because we need to, in order to plan, we need to be able to identify what is it that we actually want. And I feel like there are a couple different houses when it comes to figuring out what you want. And one of them is, okay, you figure out that you want a lot of things and you make this gigantic list, and then you feel like completely paralyzed because there's way too many things on this list to figure out what you're doing. Whether this is like yearly planning or whether this is, just planning your week or planning your day. If you've ever fallen into the decision paralysis camp, let me know. There's another camp that rather than feeling paralyzed by all of these possibilities because you've identified a lot of things that you want to do, there is this thing that happens where you can't even decide anything because there is this feeling of overwhelm that comes from societal pressures and what others expect of you, so that answering this "what do I want" question feels almost downright impossible. So that is the second camp. And there's probably thirds and fourth camps and all that stuff, just the I'm too tired camp, or I've got other things to do camp, and I'm going to put it on the back burner camp, and all that kind of stuff. Erin says, yeah, that part. Exactly. So no matter what camp you find yourself in, one of the things that can be really helpful when it comes to yearly planning is to figure out how to become more self-aware. And so we're going to be talking about practicing and flexing those self-awareness muscles, and how exactly can we do that, and what are some of the other ways that we can overcome the obstacle when it comes to yearly planning. Hey there, Carol is tuning in from Baltimore. She said a small amount of planning. Yes, Carol, I'm excited to see you on Friday. It's going to be good times. So if you would like to get the show notes from today, which I've put together with the Savvy Sara bot, you can drop the word plan down below, whether you are on Facebook or Instagram. That word should work. If you are watching along with us on YouTube, I will have a link put into the description after this broadcast is over, so you can get the information there. And actually, I can probably grab that link for you now. You can tell it's the first week of the year, because I feel like I'm all out of practice when it comes to grabbing this stuff. So I don't actually have the referral link handy. Let me grab it right now and copy. All right, YouTubers. So YouTubers, I'll drop that into the live chat, and you can also find it in the description. So no worries there. We should be good to go. Here's the link. There you go. Sara, oh yay, so many people stopping by to say hello. I see Karen has dropped the word on Facebook. And then Sharon is tuning in from Metro Detroit. Happy New Year. Nice to see you, Sharon. Aaliyah is here. Yay, hi. And let's do this. Sorry, let's get back on track, Sara. Back on track. Okay, so we have unpacked the issue a little bit, but let's revisit this just for a moment. So the issue that we're looking at is, we have this intention that we're going to plan something, and, the lovely intention that doesn't quite work out for whatever reason. We've talked about the various reasons that planning feels hard for people. But one of the main reasons is that in order to plan, we need to be self-aware. We need to be able to say actually what we want. And it can feel challenging to do that. So let's unpack some ways that we can build more self-awareness, and ways that we can get more comfortable setting goals, and what to do with those goals once we've set them. So the first item here today, let's dig into some self-awareness stuff. Those who were receiving the weekly newsletter, you've probably noticed in the past several months that I've been linking to a lot of podcasts, a lot of Life Kit podcasts. Life Kit is a podcast on NPR. I absolutely adore it because they're generally short, like between 15 and 20 minutes long. And they speak to my style of learning, because throughout the broadcast, they reiterate the points that they've gone over, which is very much what I do in these broadcasts. So one of the episodes that I listened to recently was dealing with the idea of self-awareness in regards to, kind of reviewing the past year. And I learned a term there that I thought was kind of interesting. So one of the things that helps us to become more self-aware is what we call SAT, and that is the acronym for Sweet Alone Time. And I know those of you, especially who are parents or caregivers of any sort, finding sweet alone time can be a freaking challenge. But if we want to be able to tap into, answer that really big question, what do I want? Then sweet alone time is an absolute necessity. So how can we build more SAT time into our day, into our week? I came up with a short list of some things, but I'd love for those who are listening in, to chime in with your advice on how you are able to carve in alone time. What does that look like on a daily basis, on a weekly basis? So some of the things that they suggested in this was to build in time to journal. And I realized that that can feel challenging. But, this is something that I've recommitted to this year. I've got my new quarterly planner set to go. And there is space in this planner to do a tiny bit of journaling at the beginning of the day and the end of the day. So I've got a little bit of journaling time kind of carved out on a daily basis. Here's to sticking with it for at least the next 6 weeks. And if I can do that, then I feel like I can stay with it for a long time because, got to build that habit. So journaling is a great way to build in alone time. Taking a walk. And I know for those of us, like I live in Western PA and we are just like headed into real winter months here. So taking a walk outside might be something that's a little bit challenging for some of us. But even just taking an intentional walk around the house, some way to get moving, going to the gym, getting on an elliptical, or doing some yoga, finding some type of a movement that will allow you to be by yourself and reflect with your thoughts. Great stuff, right? Can also be just carving out some time to read, finding things that make you feel inspired, whether that's reading a fictional book or, reading a nonfiction book. You choose whatever speaks to you. And one other thing that I do want to start mentioning more here is, carving out that time to work with a counselor or a mentor. Because that is a very strong way to carve out time for yourself. And it's a great opportunity to get feedback from someone. So what are some of the ways that you like to build out self-awareness time? Where do you find that SAT, sweet alone time? Drop those ideas down below. I'd love to bring those up. And let's move on to point number 2. Point number 2. So once we can get clearer around, how am I going to build in this time that's going to allow me to become more self-aware, this sweet alone time, this time when maybe I'm working with a counselor or a mentor, to have that time for myself, a place where I can get feedback and be heard. Then we get into starting to actually set those goals. So what happens once we start setting those goals? There's this thing that happens with a lot of people, and myself included. And my friend Michelle made the most lovely reel about this topic, which I'll try to link in the comments to this video later after it's done so you can check it out. When we set goals, there is this pressure that we tend to feel around things like not following through, or a few months in realizing that the goal is unattainable, etc. Or, realizing, hey, I set way too many goals for myself this month or for this year, etc. So how do we deal with this pressure of goal setting and not following through? Well, one of the things that I like to remind myself of is that if a goal after a while seems like it's not attainable, it could be that when we were setting the goal itself, it wasn't really a SMART goal, right? Remember, like a SMART goal is something that is specific, it's measurable, it's attainable, it's relevant, and it's time-bound. So we'll go through all 5 of those things briefly. But when we set these goals for ourselves and they don't meet those 5 criteria, then it's not something that is going to be attainable. So let's just brief through these, right? When we set specific goals, they need to be specific enough that you are able to explain them in 1 or 2 sentences, and that they will make sense not only to you, but other people around you as well. So when we're just saying things like, I'm going to set a goal to make more money, that's not very specific, is it? Well, how much more money? What is this money for? How is this money going to affect the business? How is it going to affect your life? We want to get really specific about our goals. So spending a little bit more time going through these 5 points can be really useful. So is it specific? Is it measurable? Is it something that you have numbers that you are either going to hit, or you have ways that you are going to be able to check in on a daily or weekly or monthly basis to measure where you are in that goal? That ties into like how well have you broken down this goal to give yourself those measurable elements that you can like check off, right? And then A stands for attainable. Is this something that is something that you've seen someone else done? Is this something that is doable, etc.? Is this and that's going to tie into the final letter too, T, time bound, right? Is this something that's going to be achievable in a set period of time? So we had specific, measurable, achievable, and then we have R, relevant. This is something that people skip out on a lot. How is this goal relevant to what is happening in your life at this moment? And one of my favorite ways to check to see if something is relevant is to use the 5 whys. So let's say that, let's come back to the goal of money, right? So to say, okay, my goal is, and this, I love the relevant question because the relevant question allows us to make it specific. So if the goal is, I'd like to make more money, then you ask why. Why would you like to make more money? Well, I'd like to make more money so that I can reinvest in my business. Okay, great. Ask the question why again. Why do you want to reinvest in your business? Because I want to be able to start a new program that is going to serve as a more niche clientele that I know that I can serve really well. Okay, and then you keep going with that why question until you have something that's super specific. And it's great stuff. So back to the pressure of goal setting. So we often get stuck on these goals that are not smart enough, right? Because we haven't really hit all 5 of those aspects. We may also feel stuck. One of the obstacles that we face is that maybe at the end of the year, you are having these feelings around the fact that there are a bunch of goals that were not achieved. I just want to say, if this is you, because like this is me, like there were things that I had on my list last year that just did not get done. There's no judgment. Doesn't mean that you're not a good human being. It doesn't mean that you're not a good business owner. It could be that maybe that goal just wasn't attainable, or maybe like throughout the year, what you wanted actually shifted, and that is okay. So this is another reason that a lot of people avoid setting goals and doing yearly planning, because there's this like pressure that we put on ourselves to say, well, I have to complete everything that's on this list. Well, what if we released that pressure? Plans, as my friend Michelle says, and I always come back to this, I love this statement. Plans are something that we create so we have something to veer from. Another thing that I like to say with my clients as we're working through brainstorming and planning and things like that is that you don't have to get married to that plan. There's nothing says that you have to get married to it. So let's just think about it for a little bit and allow ourselves to dream about it a little bit, and not, commit to it to a point where we're going to then feel this sense of failure if we decide not to do this thing. So that is point number 2. Oh, I see some great comments. Let's bring those up. If you have anything you would like to add to this idea of like, how do you deal with the pressure of goal setting, drop it down below. We'll bring it up. So this speaks back to item number 1. I'll read this out loud since it's kind of long. Karen says, I used to journal and wrote a lot of poetry, but have got away from doing that. Instead, you've been focusing on Duolingo. Okay, that's cool. So journaling, like finding that sweet alone time used to be, something that was part of your practice, and now you shifted what that alone time looks like. Laura says that meditation is her favorite sweet alone time. I love that. Bath, shower, finding some time to just sit in that water. I am a bath girl myself. That is my sacred time. All right, so let's move on to item number 3 here. Okay, another reason that another obstacle that we have when it comes to planning is that planning takes practice. And when we are maybe not so skilled in the art of planning, we might feel as though we have to do everything all at once. And that in order to plan out your year, you just have to sit down and do the entire year. And that feels really like a lot. I don't know. That doesn't feel like something that feels good to me. Am I going to sit down and find some chunks of time to do like quite a bit of planning? Absolutely. Just remember that planning is a skill that takes practice. Right? It takes practice to become good at planning. And most people don't actually plan out an entire year all at once. But it helps to sit down and start to chunk out, what does this plan look like? Okay, looking back at the year prior to figure out what worked, what didn't work, looking ahead and kind of visioning out the next year and allowing ourselves, time to play and time to imagine, and then actually getting down to the nitty gritty of identifying the goals that you want to work on. And I'm not talking like setting 10 different goals for yourself to do throughout the year, because honestly, that's a lot. So here's the thing. Recap, right? Planning takes time. It also takes it's a practice that needs to be done over and over in order to improve that skill. You don't have to plan out for the year all at once. But here's the deal. When we don't plan, right? When we don't actually even try to plan because it might feel like too much, or because we struggle with being able to pinpoint what is it that I want, here are a couple things that tend to happen. I am speaking from experience. When we avoid the act of planning, one of the biggest things that can happen is that we will find ourselves overcommitted throughout the year because we have not spent the time to figure out the amount of energy that we're going to have each quarter, each month, each week. So there's a tendency to kind of willy-nilly take on projects without understanding what you've already committed yourself to. So that's one reason that I'm really passionate about yearly planning and making sure that I get an accurate representation of the energy that I'm going to have throughout the year and what I'm committing that energy to. The other thing that can happen, and I have seen this with a lot of clients, and I have been this person myself, is that when we avoid the act of large scale planning, whether it's a year or a quarter or a month, right? When we ignore that, we start to ignore the elephants in the room. Those elephants tend to be big, important things that need to happen in order for your life to run smoothly. Things like building an emergency savings, things like budgeting, things like figuring out how is retirement going to work, etc. So when we can start really flexing those planning skills, this is when we get digging into the good stuff, the stuff that is going to release that pressure valve that so many of us feel when we avoid that type of stuff. Yeah, I love what Laura just added here. Laura says, when I don't plan, I feel like I'm flying by the seat of my pants, and that's stressful. Yeah, exactly. All right, so we're going to do a quick recap here, but before we do that, I wanted to mention that this coming Friday, January 12th, we are running a planning workshop. This is the 2024 planning workshop, and I am inviting you to join me. This is a 2-hour-long workshop. It's going to take place on Zoom. And when you sign up for this workshop, you will get my planning workbook. You will get that 2 hours with me and this lovely group of people who have signed up. And we are going to be digging into a lot of what we spoke about today. So we're going to be reflecting on 2023. We're going to be going through visioning exercises for 2024, and then we're actually going to get into the nitty-gritty of planning things out on the calendar so that you have something in place, right? So that you have this plan in place that you can follow and then veer from if you need. We're going to be talking a lot about creating flexibility in plans so that if something arises, you are able to shift and all of that goodness. So if this is something that you are interested in, there are a few spots left. If you drop the word plan down below, you'll get the recap of everything we spoke about today, and you'll also get the information about the workshop. I'm only going to run this once this year. So if that is something that you're passionate about, reach out. And yes, there will be a replay of this workshop. The replay will be available for at least 30 days. And it's going to be a good group. We've got some really fabulous people. I can't wait to reconnect with the people who are going to be there. All right, let's go back. I see Erin and Stephanie have put down the word plan. Hooray, awesome. All right, let's do this. A little recap here. So drum roll, please, y'all. It's been a hot minute since I've had to do a recap, and I'm feeling a little stressed about it. It's fine though. It's fine. Okay, let's do this. When it comes to planning things for our life and business, planning can sometimes feel overwhelming, whether you're planning for a year or a month or a week. The act of planning is something that takes a lot of practice. It also requires us to be self-reflective and introspective, which is something that we have a tendency to toss onto the back burner nowadays. So here are a few tidbits of advice when it comes to planning and how we can navigate the obstacles that might come in our way. So one of the first things that I want you to think of is, how can I build more self-awareness into my daily practice? Because self-awareness is one of the things that is really going to tie into planning very clearly. In order to plan, we need to know, what do I want? And we can't know what we want unless we have self-awareness. So build more time into your daily schedule. Sweet alone time, SAT, right? It could be journaling. It could be taking a walk. It can be reading. It can be seeking out a counselor or a mentor, but really dedicating that space to yourself so that we can practice becoming more self-aware, self-reflective, introspective in order to be able to listen to this little thing here, which is going to help you answer that question, what do I want? In order to plan, we need to know the answers to those questions. The second thing that I'd like you to think about when it comes to planning is, once we've started to identify the things that we want and really thought about, oh, okay, here's like a list of goals. There's this little thing that happens where there's this pressure that we start to put on ourselves once we've written some things down on paper, or maybe we've just thought about them. And we can start to get stuck when we realize that a goal isn't working out or that it's not attainable. So one of the things that I really like to impress on clients of mine when we're working through goal setting is to get very clear on setting SMART goals. Goals that are specific, they're measurable, they're attainable, they're relevant, and they're time bound. And there are so many ways to check those 5 aspects. But if we don't check those 5 aspects, later down the line, we may find out, oh, you know what? This goal really wasn't as relevant as I thought. It's really not tied to my values, and I've decided I'm not going to do it. So before you get caught in that, make sure that you're sitting down with the SMART and making sure that your goal meets all of those elements. Finally, the last bit of advice is that when it comes to like big scale planning, don't feel like you have to do it all at once. If you're trying to plan out a year, give yourself multiple sessions to sit down and figure things out. Planning is a skill that takes practice. And if you're trying to force yourself into planning out a year or planning it out a month all in one go and you're feeling overwhelmed, you're probably not going to want to practice that skill. Remember that most people don't actually plan out an entire year all in one sitting. It's something that takes time and reflection and something that you can return to again and again, and more clarity will come. All right. Well, that is it for today. Thank you so much for tuning in, everyone. I am excited to spend more time with you this year in 2024. And we will see you next Wednesday. So, in the meantime, stay savvy and stay you, because you are an amazing teacher and there is no one in the world quite like you. And I think you are pretty dang awesome. Good luck planning. We'll see you next time. Where's the outro video? Oh, it's right here. Hooray!